Sherrone Moore scared of Oklahoma?
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com today. He's Jay Smith of Unfair Sports. I'm John Williams with Sooners Wire at USA Today Sports. And on today's show, we're going to talk about Oklahoma softball winning the SEC and the SEC softball tournament that's going to be coming up this week in Athens. We're going to talk about Oklahoma spring ball grades on the field. We talked about the portal stuff yesterday. We're going to talk what happened on the field, how we're feeling now that spring is behind us. But the biggest news of the day is Sherrone Moore of Michigan, the former Oklahoma offensive line coach turned Michigan head coach, took a 2-game suspension voluntarily for the 2025 season, connected to the scouting scandals that occurred under Jim Harbaugh with their former assistant, where there's been some discipline already, but he voluntarily took another disciplinary action, probably because more is going to come out about this, and Sherrone's just trying to get ahead of this, but opting to sit out weeks 3 and 4, one of those games being against the Nebraska Cornhuskers, but not against Oklahoma, Jay.
Yeah, the 2 games they picked were Central Michigan at home, which is week 3, and then week 4 they traveled to Nebraska, which is a conference game. So I'm anticipating that they picked a non-conference and a conference game just so that they can help themselves. But to me, I feel like there's some fear there in Sherrone Moore playing against his former team and the homecoming. On the surface, it does appear that he is like, nope, I want to be at Oklahoma and come and visit and do all of that. But deep down inside of this, if you pay attention to it, they gave themselves self-imposed penalties. And it's like you said, John, feels like Moore is going to come out. If Moore is going to come out, that suspension is going to go up. So he's picking these games to try to hope the NCAA says, you know what, we'll allow those 2 be the only ones, and we'll call it even. When we know that's not how any of this works. It didn't work that way for Jim Harbaugh. The exact same thing happened to him. And what happened to Jim? He got suspended for the games before it as well. So basically, he just opened it up for them to say, you know what? We'll take your 2. We're going to add 2 more. And it's going to be the Oklahoma game. And it's going to be the first game of the season. So Sherrone Moore is finding a way to avoid playing against Oklahoma. It's kind of ridiculous in his part. They probably should have continued to fight this if they felt like it was definitely they're being targeted or it's wrong. But in the article, it said he got busted for deleting 52 text messages in communication with Connor Stallion. So that's the case, John. This man has set himself up to be suspended for the first 4 games of the season.
I like to think of this that he's trying to make it to where he can be in Norman because he wants to be with his team. He wants to lead his team because he understands that Oklahoma is a greater challenge than Nebraska is going to be. And he's not nearly as concerned about Matt Rule and Nebraska as maybe he is as concerned about his true freshman quarterback, Bryce Underwood, going on the road to play against the Brent Venables defense. That's the way I read this, is if I'm going to have to be available for a big time Power 5 or Power 4 game in the first 4 weeks of the season, I want it to be for my true freshman Bryce Underwood's first start on the road in a hostile environment inside Gaylord Family Oklahoma Memorial Stadium, so I can help calm the nerves of the young future star, so I can help be there to support him, encourage him, things like that, because it's going to be a rough time. He's going to have a rough go of it against Brent Venables defense. And if I'm the head coach, that's where I want to be. Week 4, when we got to go on the road to Memorial Stadium and play Nebraska, okay, it's a different ball game. He's already had 1 big road start under his belt. He's going to be a little bit more comfortable going into that environment than he would be going into Owen Field for his first collegiate road start. Very, very different circumstances, scenarios. Your thought on this makes a lot of sense in that, okay, we're just setting him up to miss the first 4 games. At the same time, maybe he's just trying to manipulate things where it's like, okay, if I'm going to have to miss games, let's not make it the first two. I got to be there for Bryce's first start. I got to be there for his first road start, especially in a game of the magnitude that it's going to be when Oklahoma plays Michigan week 2.
No, and it is that he's trying to do something, but there's a miscalculation in what he's doing. If he thinks that the NCAA is going to accept him handpicking his suspended games, he's out of his mind. We all know that they're not going to go for that. That's one thing they're going to say. Oh, you're going to pick these games, huh? These are the ones you want to miss. You're okay with missing these games. So they're going to call him out for that. And that's the problem. He's going to have to appeal it. There's going to be a fight. And we don't know if it's going to be resolved before the season starts or not. But all I know is this. Sherrone Moore has set himself up 100% for failure. They're going to call him out for picking those particular games because, that, like you said, those would be considered least detrimental games on his schedule. Now, granted, the Nebraska game could be tough because it is a conference game and you're on the road. You really don't want to lose any of those. I get why he added them because Sherrone Moore is thinking for Michigan's sake. And like you said, Bryce Underwood, the key thing is he would prefer that his Michigan Wolverines are playing on the road without him against Nebraska, who is still pretty a young up-and-coming team, but they had to add some sort of meaningful game to it, which would be more so Nebraska over Oklahoma because it's a conference game. So I totally understand that play. But again, he selected games right there, like a couple of games into the season. The NCAA is going to look at him and be like, this is what we're doing? You're going to use all your cupcake games and say that I'm not going to coach any of these at all. Central Michigan, you're not going to coach that game? What are we doing here? It's similar to what Jim Harbaugh did. And again, it's going to get extended. He should not have touched it. He should have stayed away in hopes the NCAA would fight him throughout the beginning of the season and then hit him with a suspension. Now he's opened up the door for them to say, we're going to suspend you now since you already gave yourself a self-imposed one.
Yeah, it's kind of like pleading guilty, like,
yeah,
okay, you got me. I know that there's going to be a suspension coming.
Or going for a pardon.
Yeah, let me just try and, get it to where it's amenable for all sides. But I think the NCAA could just send in the DJ Khaled GIF. Congratulations, you played yourself.
Yep.
I mean, and at this point, and I've mentioned it on social media multiple times, like at what point does Michigan just need to cut ties with anybody that was remotely related to the Jim Harbaugh era? I know he got you a national title, but he oversaw Connor Stallions, and this Connor Stallions thing that seemed to be isolated to just him has legs, man. And its tentacles are going all over the program. And if SMU can get the death penalty for what it did back in the 80s, and we've seen big restrictions and punishments levied out against other programs over the years, like what's to say that the NCAA can't take a hatchet to Michigan's program? Now, the NCAA's power has been greatly weakened over the last decade or so. And so I'll be curious to see how much they have in the tank to go fight a program like Michigan over something like this. But basically, like anybody that's at Michigan is subject to suspicion, especially that was a part of that Jim Harbaugh era.
Yeah, and you mentioned it before to me that they probably need to just clean slate it. But unfortunately, that's not going to fix any of the problems that they have with this whole investigation piece because somebody's going to get punished for it. And it's rare that they actually punish the coaches retro while they're gone and give them the show calls and all that. They only give them the show calls that they're actually physically there, which is the thing that's going to throw all this off. But this is why this was a major miscalculation on Sherrone Moore is Michigan did the self-imposed thing with Harbaugh in 23 and they gave it to him in August, right? So they said in August 23rd, which was right before the season started, we're not going to let Harbaugh coach the first 3 games. Cool. Everybody thought it was done. Nah. In November, the Big Ten came back and announced 3 more games, which ended the season. That to me is way more detrimental for Sherrone Moore compared to Harbaugh, because Harbaugh's team was already built as a well-oiled machine and Moore was the guy running things. Who would be the one that's going to step up for Sherrone Moore while he's out? I don't know their staff well enough for me. I'll have to dig in and figure it out. But that is where that issue comes in. And so because he did it so early, which it is May 6th, he got this done on Cinco de Mayo. He decided to put that bad boy out there, probably drinking margaritas and eating tacos. He partied it up in his sombrero with the big issue here, John. They're probably going to hit him with more suspensions this summer. He did it too early. If he would have shown his hands in August, maybe he would have gotten away with it. They're going to see this. They're going to read right through it. And they're going to slap him for at least the first month. And then we'll see what's going on. At that point, Sherrone Moore will be making it to Norman, Oklahoma to play against the Oklahoma Sooners.
Yeah, and Oklahoma's going to start 2-0 with or without Sherrone Moore anyway. So whether he's with Michigan or he's not. Because they had a great spring, we're going to talk about what we feel, what the buzz was like, and how we would grade Oklahoma's spring on the field based on everything that we've heard coming out of spring ball. Coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.
The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. I'm seeing it with my Thunder. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in the action. So FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip and live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Like, for example, I'm looking at the big moments here for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Maybe you get this out of Donovan Mitchell, or even what about a trending bet with Tyrese Halliburton, which, they've got beef there. He's been balling out. He's one that can do that. How could a $200 bonus in bets add to the excitement if your first $5 hit? If you can get Donovan Mitchell and the Cavs to win, it is definitely a big one. So if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA.
Thanks again for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there tuning in. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcast. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So, Jay, we talked portal season on yesterday's show. You thought they had a portal season. I gave them a B+. Still feel like there's a few needs. But as we look to the on-field work that Oklahoma got done this offseason, based on the buzz, based on the reports that we heard out of spring ball, where would you grade, or how would you grade Oklahoma's spring?
I'm going to give Oklahoma spring an A-, because the one thing that I heard from this spring that gives me a substantial amount of hope, and that I was hoping to hear, was the offense had really good days. The defense had really good days. The offense would have a good day for a day or two in a row. Then the defense will come back with a day or two in a row. And it was a lot of alternating, which means that both sides of the ball is actually competent enough to handle the other side. That's huge, because last year, it's not what we heard. Last year was not like that. Last year was the defense was dominant, and everybody was like, okay, this defense is similar to the ones we saw back in 2007, 2008, when they were really abusing Sam Bradford. So hopefully our quarterback can be forged in fire, and he can come out of it evolved into some great piece of steel, and he's a dominant, knight out there. We didn't get that, unfortunately, John. That wasn't what we got from Jackson Arnold, and Michael Hawkins was not yet fully forged yet. So we knew that we needed another year of fire for the guy. Well, when it comes to this time around, it sounds like John Mateer was out there cooking himself. He was out there putting pressure on the defense and turning those pieces of lumps of coal into diamonds. So because of that, John, we got back and forth. That made me feel so much more comfortable about this team in comparison to last year.
Yeah, I think where I feel the most comfortable is that the offensive line seems to have come together so far. Like, you've got a starting five, and you know who that five is right now. Now, could a guy like a Jake Michael have pushed Troy Everett for a starting job? Yeah. Could Michael Fasusi push Jacob Sexton for that starting left tackle job? Yeah. Could Ryan Foje push Febechi Wiwu? Yeah. But other than that, other than guys being pushed for a job, right now who your starting five is going to be along the offensive line. unless those guys just pass them through summer workouts and fall camp and take jobs, you're not concerned about where the offensive line is. I think from left to right, when it's Sexton and Eddie Pierre-Louis and Troy Everett and Fabechi Wiwu and Derek Simmons, that's a really solid starting five. And if that's your five and they stay healthy through fall camp and you go into the season with that, that group's had 9 months to work together to get ready for the start of the season. And then again, if you have a guy go take a job, then you're just better off for it because somebody went and earned it. It wasn't injuries making the way for someone to get an opportunity like it was last year. So I think to me, that's the most encouraging aspect so far is that relatively along the offensive line, you've been really healthy. You haven't heard of any major setbacks or any big injuries that have occurred to your depth. You've had guys that were, held out because they had off-season procedures that were keeping them limited and they're rehabbing and doing all that stuff through spring ball and they're going to be ready for fall camp. But you didn't have anybody blow an ACL. You didn't have anybody tear a shoulder. Like these guys stayed healthy. And I think that's huge, man, because you're going to need that. You're going to need that offensive line to stay healthy and have that continuity and that chemistry. And they're able to just work and build that. And I think John Mateer is going to be really, really good. But if he doesn't have anybody blocking for him up front and there's a turnstile of offensive linemen based on injury because of injury, then it's going to be really hard for him to get comfortable and feel comfortable with what he's trying to do in the pocket if he's not sure who his left tackle is going to be. And
that's a fair point.
Being said, I think too deep, we've talked about it before. Your too deep depth chart along the offensive line is so much better than what it was last year. I think everybody feels a lot more comfortable that, listen, if Jacob Sexton does have to sit out a series and you go to Michael Fasusi, who's not going to be fired up to see Michael Fasusi out there for a series? Everybody's going to be pumped. Like you're going to be excited and everybody's going to be calling for it. Like, let's see more Michael Fasusi because everybody's fired up about that. So I think just hearing some of the positive reports about the offensive line, again, there's give and take day after day. It's not always one side dominating the other, but the fact that those guys are holding their own against what we believe to be one of the best defensive lines in college football, I give that. I mean, that's where I got my A grade right now is because the offensive line has been holding up.
And you made a good point there about the offensive linemen that were held out. So you got Heath Ozaida as well as Logan Howlett and Jake Taylor. All of them were dealing with some sort of surgeries, cleanup surgery. It sounded like on the shoulder. It's just like Jaden Jackson was on defense. And so that means for you as a team that the Oklahoma Sooners have that too deep that you mentioned. You just need to get everybody back, into continued shape. And right now, Eddie Pierre-Louis is leading the way on at that left, that guard spot. But Heath Ozaida could come back and take that here in the summer and in fall camp. But as you mentioned, we've got a too deep of guys that have actually played football in the SEC or played a lot of snaps in general, on top of two true freshmen that you have zero fear of going out there on the field and playing. Because they came in the spring, they should be ready to go. Like we would have saw more Eddie Pierre-Louis, they said last year, if he had came in the spring. If he didn't show up because he showed up in summer because, he couldn't graduate early at Tampa Catholic. They don't do early graduates. If he was able to get there in the spring, he probably would have played, John. We would have been able to see him playing a little bit of guard and helping out with some of the injured players. And he only didn't play because he didn't really know the playbook yet. But granted, I don't think anybody knew the playbook, so I don't think it would have mattered. We could have easily gotten away with it, but we did not do that to ourselves. So because of that, now we're actually in a situation, John, where we have a lot of dudes that know the book, know what needs to be done. I think it's going to lead to a very promising fall, which is exact same as you. I give that A, mainly because I'm hearing that there is a lot of continuity on this team as it's gone through every practice. We dealt with two injuries that were slightly concerning. One with Eli Boeing and the ankle sprain, but that's an ankle sprain. It wasn't anything serious, wasn't anything broken, even though he was rolled up on. That's probably healed now because we're at that point. It's probably healed now and he'll be ready to go easily by fall camp. And in the Giovanni Gibson situation where his fibula was snapped because a teammate rolled onto him while he was blocking. Freak accident. basically a freak accident is what got us to where we got Jermichael Carter, which is honestly a very good pickup, a very good additional piece, a very up and coming potential. Because the good thing is, to me, at that spot at wide receiver, don't really matter where he came from. If you got the talent, it's going to shine. And if the coaches can put you in the position, you'll shine. So I like that, knock on wood, that the world hasn't fell apart on this yet.
No, and we just hope that everybody stays healthy through fall camp, and this team is relatively healthy when they open the season against Illinois State. Because, listen, they need a little bit of injury luck on their side. Last year, they had none of it. There was no injury luck, especially on the offensive side of the ball. This year, it comes back. It regresses to the mean, as they say in the statistical world. Can't get that word out. My apologies. Speaking of statistics, the Oklahoma Sooners won another conference championship on the softball diamond. We're going to discuss that coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.
Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more. Experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need an extra hand for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. The biggest thing is finding additional talent. Like I've done that for my personal channel over there, Unfair Sports, looking for someone to help me with graphics and different designs in the background. Upwork has connected me with some great freelance experts, and they've all delivered some incredible results. So visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's UPWORK.com, Upwork.com, to connect with top talent and grow your business today.
Thanks again for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there tuning in. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcast. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The Oklahoma Sooners clinched the SEC title last Friday after they won game one against Florida. And then, Texas A&M won game one in their series versus Tennessee. And then on Friday, Tennessee won game two, which helped Oklahoma clinch the SEC championship. It's been a really good year for the Oklahoma Sooners. Despite some of their ups and downs, they still won the SEC, a really, really tight SEC title race. A lot of it due to that big sweep over Texas and then the sweep over Mississippi State, the series before that. But as they get ready for the SEC tournament down there in Athens, Georgia, this is a team that seemingly still has a lot to prove, which is crazy to think about when you think about the Oklahoma Sooners, the four-time defending national champions.
So out of 15 first place votes in the preseason, Oklahoma got how many, John? Two first place votes. The team with all the first place votes was 7 for Texas, 6 for Florida. So as everyone told us, Tennessee posted a beautiful post throughout the season and said, welcome to the SEC, because, they got that win over Oklahoma in the series. And we're like, okay, noted. Noted. And everyone said that as soon as Oklahoma gets into the SEC, it's going to be so much tougher for them to be able to do what they did on the softball diamond, actually in all sports. And yeah, softball just went in there and just won it once again. That's just what they do. So not sure why people even doubt it, Patty. The funny thing about it is Coach Gasso is dealing with a situation where she's got a bunch of young players anyway. Only one veteran arm pitching, a lot of young players all over the place. So this was a rebuild season anyway because of so many young players not, basically leading the lineups. Well, the beauty of it is what? Oklahoma still won it in a rebuild year. So next year, buddy, they're going to be a threat.
Yeah, you look at the top of their statistical, leaders, and you have Cassidy Pickering, who's a true sophomore, Ella Parker, who's a true sophomore, Nellie McEnroe Marinas, who's a redshirt freshman, and Gabby Garcia, who's a true freshman. That's like the core
Babies.
of your lineup. And then you talk about Hannah Core, who's playing a lot of significant innings for Oklahoma. I want to say she's just a true sophomore as well. Tia Malloy is showing up, and she's a true freshman. I mean, this team is young, and despite some of the pitching woes that they've had, they continue to win ball games, and they've continued to find a way. And I think that's the thing that's really encouraging about them. And I went and I did my SEC tournament picks over at Sooners Wire, and you can go check that out over there at SoonersWire.com. And ultimately, I picked Oklahoma to win the SEC tournament. And the biggest reason why, despite some of the pitching woes that they've had, is I can't, in my good conscience, pick against them. I've seen them defy the odds way too many times over the course of these last 4 years. But even beyond that, the last decade of Oklahoma softball has just been absolutely fantastic. And they've done the remarkable time and time again that, like, well, why not? Why can't they? Why couldn't Kirsten Deal pull it together and have another magnificent game like she did in game 2 against Texas just a week and a half ago? Why can't Isabella Smith come through and throw 3 really strong innings like she did against Texas? It's that part. It's like, okay, yes, the Florida series went the way it went, but there's still a lot of potential for them to be better than what they were in that series. So I still believe that this team has a chance to go make a big, deep run and has a chance to win it all. I mean, they're right there in the mix with everybody else. Now, have teams caught up to them a little bit? I think so. I think the gap has narrowed from what it was a season ago, but I'm not going to count them out. And you shouldn't either, because at the end of the day, they might win it all again, and we'd all feel a little bit foolish. They might not win it, but that doesn't mean that this is a bad team. It just means that this is a team that is very young, and it's a little bit more flawed than the team last year, but there's a lot of talent on this team. And they, like I said, they've got every bit the chance to go win it all again.
Yeah, and I understand the doubt. You're dealing with a team full of young players. And I mean, we do the same thing on the football field. We do that in basketball. We pointed out that when you're dealing with a team full of a lot of young players, it's very hard for you to truly rely on all those young players to actually step up and make it happen. I mean, Oklahoma's dealt with that in some of the pitching. You bring in a young player and you give up a 8-0 lead and let them tie the game up. So, I mean, it happens. That's something that's going to, but they need that experience anyway for you to understand if they are going to be ready to play in the near future. And so it's nothing wrong with it. It's still at the same time, though, it's young players. So I get where the doubt came in. While at the same time, this is Patty Gasso. Why are we pretending like she hasn't been doing this for years, haven't been cooking folks since she's been there? We may as well go ahead and recommend and say, nah, we're not gonna doubt her. We'll give, if anyone has deserved the benefit of the doubt, regardless of conference, regardless of who they played, it has been Patty Gasso. She has proven that every year in the tournament. And, everybody's going to complain very soon that the World Series is in Oklahoma City, and it's not fair that Oklahoma gets another home field advantage, even though Nebraska has yet to win anything in Omaha. But I digress. We won't go into all those details. It's a little too much. I mean, who was it? Was it LSU that had the national championship for gymnastics at their crib not too long ago? Men's was up in Michigan, and Michigan won it. No one complained about Michigan being at home. No, there's no reason to. It is what it is. It'll be okay. So, Oklahoma needs to go out there, just put in work like they always do, which they probably will. Going down to Athens, I actually hope they can pull out and win the SEC tournament. That way they can have the outright season title as well as the tournament title. That would be a huge thing, John. And that would make it to where I would like all fans out there of softball to just put respect on Patty Gasso's name at that point.
Yeah, the Oklahoma Sooners will play their first game on Thursday. They'll play the winner of Mississippi State versus LSU in the 8-9 game. All 15 teams in the SEC are making the SEC tournament. And so the bracket is kind of wild. You got the bottom 6 teams playing on Tuesday, and then it goes on to kind of the next round on Wednesday, and so on and so forth. The semifinals will be on Friday, the championship game on Saturday on ESPN in the afternoon. But you mentioned Audrey Lowry coming in that Texas game when they had the 8-0 lead, and she didn't record an out and she gave up a bunch of runs. Well, what she's done since then, Jay, she's thrown 3 innings over 2 appearances and hasn't allowed a run. And in those 2 innings, I should say, hasn't allowed a run, 24 pitches total. One of those was 2/3 of an inning, and she threw 4 pitches. So she might have got rocked against Texas, but that might have flipped a switch in her and gotten some things right after that. So look for her to get some more opportunities in the SEC tournament to prove that she's ready to be a viable arm for Patty Gasso in the postseason. And we'll have all the coverage here for you here on Locked On Sooners. Make sure you're tuned in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcast. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. So hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. Make sure you follow Jay over on Twitter at Unfair Sports. You can check out his channel, Unfair Sports, over on YouTube as well. You can follow me at John9Williams and read my work covering the Sooners over at SoonersWire.com. The show is at Locked On Sooners on all of your favorite social media platforms. So make sure you follow us wherever that might be. But until next time, he's Jay Smith. I'm John Williams. We'll talk to you then. Boomer.
Sooner. Think softball is going to win it again. Let's go ahead and get this SEC championship.
Again, never doubt Patty Gasso. Not going to do it.